This story has dominated the news globally this week. Search and rescue groups are helping with Gift of the Giver's own team arriving in Türkiye on Wednesday morning to assist with the aftermath of those deadly quakes on Monday, both in that country and also neighboring northern Syria. The organization announced it would be including South African sniffer dogs and handlers in the search and rescue mission in the hardest hit regions. For an update, we're joined now by Gift of the Giver's founder, Dr. Imtiaz Sooliman, also a recipient of the Order of the Baobab for his efforts to help with humanitarian crises both locally and abroad. Dr. Sooliman, thank you for your time this morning. As I was saying just a moment ago, checking your line, there's a lot on your plate at the moment. How is the team faring in Türkiye, and what is the latest?
Good morning, Alan. The teams are doing very well. They had a bit of a hiccup on the first day that they got there. Well, it took them virtually 48 hours to get to the earthquake site. And the last part from Adana to Hatay, where the biggest part of the destruction is in Antakya province, they got there in the evening after 8 hours. It's a 180-kilometer journey. It took 8 hours because of the congestion on the roads, the difficulty, buses, ambulances, goods coming in and out. It took a long time. When they got to the camp, we were expecting everything to be arranged because that's what we were told. But we're not blaming anybody. When you see the destruction on the side, you can see in what kind of mental and emotional state the people in Turkey must be, including the government agencies, the disaster agencies. It's just too much to handle. So there were no tents for us, no place to sleep. But, diplomacy and handling disasters is part of what we specialize in. The guys made a way. We had 10 of our own tents. They slept in the buses. They slept in the cars. But to answer your question, they were looking forward to get on site. And yesterday morning, of course, they first joined the Serbian team. Later on, they joined the Turkish team. And the Turkish team said they like to work with us, throughout the process whilst we're there. And whilst those teams were there, the first team was there, we sent in the second team. And in the beginning, you mentioned the dogs. 5 dogs and 6 handlers have arrived this morning. They're already at work.
My goodness. I mean, you do get a sense of the decimation that followed those blasts. We had a conversation with someone from Médecins Sans Frontières, Doctors Without Borders, yesterday. They're based in northern Syria, trying to provide aid and help there. And one of the things that came up was the risk of secondary infections, also the logistics around getting the necessary personnel and equipment to sites where they're still trying to rescue people. What are your thoughts on both those topics?
Well, second infection is always a risk, but right now, the problem is to get the people out alive. There's multiple factors to look at in an earthquake. We also have big operations in Turkey, in Syria. We run one of the largest hospitals in North Syria. We're in that country for 11 years now. Our hospital called Al-Rahma has 320 personnel, medical and non-medical. We have a second hospital called Al-Hilal on the Turkish-Syrian border. We're looking at putting up a third hospital, a field hospital being donated by an agency to us. We have our own kitchen of feeding centers and supplying the victims in the casualties in the hospital as well as casualties in the field. We just sent across a whole load of tents yesterday to help. We're sending out teams for search and rescue, and we're also sending out medical teams to assist in other hospitals that can't cope because we have enough personnel in Syria. And from earthquake, secondary infection, but the challenges are, first of all, the trauma, huge trauma, crush injuries, and kidney failure is common, spinal injuries, pulling people out. And then, of course, there's a lot of primary health care, not only secondary infection, because those people who may not be badly traumatized, yes, they get infections in the wounds, in the cuts, in the bruises, they need specialized wound cleaning. But those people who are not severely injured, and there's tens of thousands of those people sitting on the side of the road, sleeping in their cars. They can't go into their buildings. They can't go into the houses. They had a huge earthquake of 7.8, a second one of 7.6, more than 320 aftershocks of greater than 6. These are not small tremors. These are huge tremors, and the buildings are unsafe. All those people need primary health care because whilst you have trauma that's required in an earthquake zone, you also have the normal people need the asthmatic medication, the hypertension medication, the diabetic medication. So you need, and when we go to disaster zones, we find quite often the non-trauma patients are far more than trauma patients. So all that has to be taken care of. But the problem is there's no hospital. All hospitals have been flattened. They're all destroyed.
I mean, it's chilling to hear, you know, the kind of logistical challenges here, the conflation of factors, as you mentioned, you know, internally displaced persons, for example, lack of infrastructure because hospitals have been, you know, just completely flawed in all of this. It does sound, though, like Gift of the Giver's sort of footprint in this region, these regions, is sort of equipping you and putting you in a position to maybe respond particularly timeously. What do you think are the sort of key focus areas for you moving forward with this aid work?
Search and rescue is still key. You have people, there's two parts to this. One is bringing people out alive, and there's still hope. Even up to yesterday, people were found alive. We can never give up hope. In Haiti, we took out a lady from the collapsed Catholic Church, a 64-year-old Eda Zizi. We took out 8 days after the earthquake, alive. So there's always hope of taking people out. Secondly, and more importantly, the people on the side, if you walk away, and, you know, you're going to destroy them emotionally and psychologically. They need to know that you tried your best till the very end. And even if you don't find the person alive, if you bring out a man's child or his wife or the children's parents, you know, it's a time for closure. So the emotional and psychological aspect is very critical. And that's why they feel very heartened. We send in a first team of 26 personnel. We send in a second team of 6 personnel. We send in a third team of 5 sniffer dogs and 6 dog handlers. We now have been offered another 7 dogs and dog handlers to go in. If necessary, we can send that in also. But it's not, you know, it's not always about the actual rescue itself. It's about the impact you have on the minds of the people waiting. They haven't slept for 4 or 5 nights. They just sit on the site in that cold, hoping upon hope. Let's put ourselves in their shoes. What would we do if our child, our mother, or father is caught up in the rubble? We will sit there and wait for somebody to come and do something for us. You know, so we need to do this, just understand the psyche and do that. And the sad thing is that you've got thousands of people on the side. No government can deal with this. It's 10 provinces that have been hit one time. Between Turkey and Syria, the earthquake has affected 23 million people. 24,000 are already dead and counted for. The ones that are not counted for, we don't know how many more there are. Thousands are wounded. Besides trying to take care of that, your airports are destroyed, you can't fly in. The roads are damaged, you can't drive in. Your hospitals are gone, you can't put medical teams. And on top of that, you're going to feed and house hundreds of thousands of people, but there's no houses. There's no community halls. There's no places to put them in. You put them in and there's another tremor comes, it's going to fall on top of them, it's going to kill them. What do?
I mean, that's a very sobering picture you paint of what is happening there on the ground. From your engagements with your own teams, as you say, now 5 sniffer dogs have arrived with 6 handlers, an initial team of 26, a further 6 after that. It sounds like there is momentum building as this humanitarian crisis persists. What stories have you heard? What hope have your teams found working on search and rescue since Wednesday?
Last night and this morning, they told me they think there's some sign of life, you know, in one of the buildings. We have 3 special types of equipment. One is called a life locator. If you put it on the ground, in 3 minutes, it will tell you if someone is alive 10 meters under the rubble. The second equipment is video cameras, special type of video cameras that you can put the pipes to the gaps in the rubble, and you can actually see if people are there. In the event, you use the other equipment, which is a special type of audio technology. Normally, you can't hear noise inside the rubble. There's too much sounds outside. But this one, if you put this audio equipment inside the rubble, even though there may be sounds outside, you can hear sounds inside the rubble. So once you hear the sounds, you use a video camera to pick up, and then, of course, balance that with a life locator, and the greatest asset of all are the dogs. The dogs are the most efficient. And they would find signs of life, and they would point that out to you. We're hoping that sign of life that we think we got yesterday, together with the dogs today, can confirm that, and then you can try to see. You can't do this alone. You know, you need to work with other teams because it's just too big a job to do. The concrete is too much. So yesterday morning, we were working with the Serbian team. In the afternoon, we were working with the Turkish team, and the Turkish team said they want to work with us, you know, throughout the process. I think we probably were the biggest team on site, with 38 personnel.
Goodness. You have been involved with Gift of the Givers, which you established since 1992. In all the years that you have been driving this organization and its aid work, have you seen anything like this before?
Pakistan. The Pakistan earthquake struck from Rawalpindi to Muzaffarabad, the Kashmir border. It didn't wipe out the region. It wiped out an entire region, not a province, an entire region from Rawalpindi to Muzaffarabad. It affected 400 villages, which actually sank into the ground. Sometimes you would only see the second and the third floor, and thousands had passed on, but nobody actually knows the figures of how many people died in that earthquake. The other big one, of course, was the tsunami, which affected 13 countries in 2004, 26 December. Sri Lanka, Indonesia, Thailand, Myanmar, Maldives, Andaman Islands in India, even parts of Somalia, a place called Hafun. Huge destruction. Indonesia alone, I think the death toll was more than 400,000.
Hopefully that experience informs your approach to this humanitarian disaster. Thank you, Dr. Sooliman, for that update on South Africa's involvement in humanitarian efforts in Türkiye and Syria. We appreciate